I'm the Mr. Beat Dude who made a video about every presidential election in American history. If you watch that series...
Which you better have, boy, what the heck if you did not?
Anyway, if you watch that series, you'll know that the United States has had many exciting and crazy presidential elections in its history. But my favorite presidential election to learn about is the election of 1860. Because it was effectively two elections in one, John Breckenridge versus John Bell in the South, and Abraham Lincoln versus Stephen Douglas in the North. 4 candidates all had a chance to win. It had the highest voter turnout in American history up to that point. And to this day, only one other presidential election, the election of 1876, has had a higher turnout. The guy who ended up winning the election, you may have heard of him, got less than 40% of the popular vote and wasn't even on the freaking ballot in 10 southern states. It's the only American election that directly resulted in a civil war, for goodness sake. Now, if you know me... Wait, you don't know me? Nice to meet you, I'm Mr. Beat. If you've been watching me a while, you already know that I am generally not a big fan of alternate history content. But one of my favorite channels to watch over the years has been Alternate History Hub. And that channel is so good that it has almost single-handedly changed my mind about the genre. Not only has Cody, the creator of Alternate History Hub, convinced me that alternate history as a genre isn't all bad, he's also convinced me to make my very first alternate history video of my own. Oh yeah, this video. The video you're watching right now. Instead, let's say Lincoln's old debating buddy, the U.S. Senator from Illinois, Stephen Douglas, won the election. It's not that wild of an idea, actually. See all those blue counties? He won those. But in a lot of those green, yellow, and red counties, I'd argue he was the second choice. In fact, while he finished 4th in the Electoral College, getting just 12 electoral votes, he finished 2nd in the popular vote. Now, while we don't have definitive evidence that Douglas was the second choice of a lot of voters in 1860, I can certainly infer, based on that and other evidence, that he would have been a lot of people's second choice. Now, I'm a big fan of ranked choice voting. If you don't know how ranked choice voting works, I did make a short video explaining it, which I've linked below, but simply put, it's a way to rank all the candidates.
So you don't just have a say on one candidate, but all of them.
So in this alternate timeline, let's say ranked choice did exist in 1860. With ranked choice voting, I think there's a good chance Douglas would have won. He was likely the second choice to most Breckenridge and Bell supporters. So let's do this, partner. Mr. Beat presents Alternate American History. Thanks to the newly implemented ranked choice voting, Stephen Douglas won the election, becoming the 16th president of the United States. Southerners were generally not happy, but at least that Lincoln dude didn't get elected, and no states seceded from the country after all. That said, hardly anyone was happy. Douglas was a compromise candidate after all, although it was impressive that he was the only candidate to win electoral votes from both free states and slave states. At his inaugural address, President Douglas proclaimed, quote, "We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. We must continue to remember what we have in common, our love of liberty, justice, free enterprise, and democracy." In his first few months in office, Douglas continued to call for lower tariffs and popular sovereignty as more Americans moved out west. He also supported the Homestead Act, a bill which promised 160 acres of free land to any settler as long as they lived on and improved that land for at least 5 years. However, most politicians in slave states hated the bill since they viewed it as favoring free states over slave states. In May, Douglas became sick with typhoid fever and never recovered. He died on June 3rd, 1861. On his deathbed, at least thankful he had helped keep the country out of war, the Little Giant giant was just 48 years old. Vice President Herschel Johnson was sworn in to take his place, becoming the 17th president of the United States. A slave owner and former governor of Georgia, he was much more sympathetic to the Southern cause. After Congress passed the Homestead Act, he vetoed it. Still, Johnson was similar to Douglas in that he was also a devout Unionist and for popular sovereignty. When Kansas became a state later that year as a free state, violence there continued. Johnson sent federal troops to Kansas to tame the chaos. For the rest of President Johnson's term, Congress, as well as the country as a whole, became further divided and radicalized. Congress had a hard time passing any bill, even basic spending bills, as the extremes in both the Democratic and Republican parties gained power and began blocking anything remotely resembling compromise. The extreme wing of the Democratic Party was made up of, quote, fire eaters, not because they literally ate fire, but because they refused to compromise on slavery to a point where they wanted to secede and start their own country. Meanwhile, the Republican Party's extreme wing was known as the, quote, radical Republicans, because they wanted to do, quote, radical things like end slavery and give full civil rights to former slaves. By 1864, the Democratic Party was generally too upset over how moderate Herschel Johnson was, and they voted to nominate John Breckenridge for president instead, who by this time was extremely popular in the South, having almost a cult-like following there. Rather than run for re-election for a third party, Johnson decided to quietly retire from politics after the election. The Republicans, meanwhile, were also divided. The radical Republicans wanted Salmon Chase as their candidate. The moderates again wanted Abraham Lincoln, who by now was the U.S. Senator of Illinois. Ultimately, though, the Republican Party went with Lincoln, but only because many radicals were swayed to support him since he changed his mind about slavery. Yep, now Lincoln wanted a constitutional amendment to abolish it outright, man. There was no unified third-party movement this time, or fourth party. The election of 1864 was just a rematch of two seemingly opposite candidates, Breckenridge and Lincoln. Tensions were never higher in the country, with most Southern Democrats preemptively calling for their home states to secede should Lincoln win. It's worth noting that Breckenridge never explicitly called for secession, though. Polling places on election day were even rowdier than in 1860, with violence erupting at many locations. Ultimately, President Johnson had to send in federal troops again to keep order, especially in Kentucky, and here are the results. Lincoln won, getting 194 electoral votes and Breckenridge getting 118. This was the most regionally divided election in American history. I mean, just look at that map. Other than out west, split between the North and South, with Lincoln winning all free states and Breckenridge winning all slave states. This election was a direct cause of Southern states beginning to secede from the Union. Immediately following the election results, a South Carolina convention declared, quote, that the Union now subsisting between South Carolina and other states under the name of United States of America is hereby dissolved. It was the first state to leave. By the time Abraham Lincoln was inaugurated, 6 more southern states would follow, forming a new country called the Confederate States of America. Soon the country would find itself in what would become, by far, the deadliest war in American history. Today it's called the Civil War, and the election of 1864 was a direct cause. Welcome to the presidency, Mr. Lincoln. In other words, the American Civil War was inevitable. If it didn't happen in 1861, it almost certainly would have happened in 1865. Stephen Douglas winning instead of Lincoln in 1860 only kicked the can further down the road. I'm sorry, there were just too many other causes. But what about other presidential elections? Like, what if James Polk lost to Henry Clay in the election of 1844, eh? Well, as it so happens, Emperor Tiger Star has just released a video looking at that very possibility. Or, and this is a crazy one, what if Herbert Hoover decided to run for president in 1920 instead of later on in 1928? How much differently would historians view him? Well, as it also turns out, Alternate History Hub, who I mentioned earlier, has just released a video about that possibility. You see, you're not just getting one alternate presidential election video today, you're getting 3. I normally don't eat that healthy, and so I'm always on the lookout for supplements. And this video just so happens to be sponsored by Earth Echo. And a popular thing that they sell is Cacao Bliss. The main ingredient in this is cacao, which if you don't know, it's a superfood that has antioxidants that can help
Neutralize free radicals in your body.
Cacao Bliss is 100% organic, ethically sourced. It has earth-friendly packaging, has low carbohydrates, 0 white sugar. It's vegan-friendly, keto-friendly, kosher, gluten-free. Just gonna mix it together here. All right, let's try this out. Dang, that's really good. All right, so you can try this stuff out for yourself. Go to the link in the description of this video, use code BEAT, and you can save 15% off. Thanks to Earth Echo for sponsoring this video. Now it's time for my monthly shout out to all my Patreon supporters who donate at least 15 bucks or more each month to my channel, starting with my $20 a month supporters. Going in reverse order alphabetically, I've got Society's Basement, Sean Connett, Sammy, Pat Iapicca, Owen, Osbers Gaming, Nick Everett, Neo R14, Matt Standish, Isaiah Warfield, Anti-Machine, Dr. Paul J. Lilly, Douglas Martin, Corey Ryman, Bill Dowd, Austin Ciros, Anthony Beckett, Andrew B., Alicia Solberg, and Adam Lucky. At the $15 a month level, I've got Zachary F. Parker, Waterfort, Warren Girard, Thomas Oppenheim, Steve Bryan, Stacy, Samuel Striz, Naderade, LT Marshall, Oliver E, KZ210QB, Ika Sanjika 615, Joel Serrano Lozada, Jacob Birnbaum, Jack L, Elon Capone, Ian Driscoll, Grant Hughes, Andrew Snyder, and Adam Christians. Thank you all for your generous support. Okay, so your homework assignment now is to watch those 2 videos that I'm pointing to right now. And if you're not watching this on YouTube, I'm pointing at the spider web up in the corner where your walls meet the ceiling. Don't mess with that spider. The spider did nothing wrong, okay? He's keeping the bugs out. Just leave him be. Thanks for viewing.